Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the sixth turn of the Shadowtech Goddess, subtitled Kat, Part 4, Chapter 4, Ottoman John, and Melazarr of Caroline. In the previous chapter, Lord Belmont and Kat began their quest to burrow their way into the Demon and Blue Light's horror realms. They have to do this in order to carve an opening into her realm, as it has no entrance or exit. And they do this by adjusting fate here and there. And the first fates they adjusted was that of Aram and Alesta. In this particular universe, the ones that assisted Kat in the first part of the book were from a different universe, from Universe 1. This is Universe 6. And in this universe, those two had never met, and their goal was to bring them together. Aram was a shy, nerdy, introverted little guy. Alesta was a wretched, mean prostitute. But everything seemed to work out. They seemed to eventually to gravitate to each other to some extent, and with luck, they will have a happy ending in time. We proceed to the next chapter, Chapter 4. And again, as with the previous chapter, this is one I wrote for another book. When I'm writing, when I'm creating, I come up with all sorts of scenes, all sorts of concepts. And you go, oh, this is cool. This concept is neat. This idea, slip it in. And then you, most of the time, them back out. Like, well, this is a neat idea. I can't make it work, so it's got to go. And this was another one that I really liked the concept of what I'd created. I mean, it was cool, it was weird, and I'm all for the weirdness. We go full barrels, two-fisted weirdness, straight on, no apologies, no pussyfooting around. We're gonna do it. But it just didn't work where I had originally written it, so I stuck it on a jump drive and forgot all about it. And then we get to this part of the series, this part of the book, where all weirdness finds a welcome embrace. I'm like, I need to give Kat her power back. And I think this weird thing I had written a couple books ago will do the job nicely. The problem was I couldn't find it. I had written it years before. I hadn't seen it in years, hadn't thought of it in years. And the old trope where, an artist or a writer or whoever, whenever you create something and you lose it, you can never really recreate it again. And that is real deal. That is real world stuff. It's no joke. You create something, you compose it in your head, you get it all out, you get it onto paper or onto your file or whatever, and you sort of offload it. You erase it from the databanks. You're over it. It's done. You've got it on paper. You've got it someplace where you can massage it later. But it is out. It is gone. It is out of your head. And if you lose it, that's it. That's game over for that particular thing that you created. In my nonfiction memoirs, 10 Weeks at Chanute, I had lost Chanute. I wrote it. I started writing it on a lark and then kind of put it down, started doing other books, and then got the urge to continue it on later. And I couldn't find it. And I'd only written a couple thousand words, just a few pages. But those couple thousand words were crucial. If I couldn't find it, that's it for that project. It's done. It's over. It is history. Fortunately, I did find it. I did find Chanute, and fortunately, I did find this part of the book, these next few chapters, in a weird little tiny 4 meg jump drive. I don't know why I put it in that one, but I found it. Very infantile, needed a lot of work, but the seed was there. The kernel was there, and it was totally weird, and I just loved it. I thought, okay, now we can put this weirdness right here. It'll suit the story. It'll suit my needs to give Kat her power back, because without it, these two don't stand a chance. No, they don't. They're going to die horribly. I'm sure none of you want that. We go in full force We are on a crash course for weirdness. And one more note before we begin. These Shadow Tech Goddess books, you see the same characters popping up all over again in the various books. You see Hannah Ben Sherlamp all the time in various guises. You see, obviously, Lord Belmont. He's always a little bit different. In one book, he was a woman. In Stenabel, he was a woman. You see Aram and Alesta in their different guises. You also see Ottoman John. His name pops up a lot in these books, and he's had a varied career so far. He's been a toady and henchman for Hannah Ben Sherlamp. He's been a wayward scholar. He's been a bar, which is a very wealthy attorney. He's been a kind of a milquetoast guy, and here he is again. I thought, I've been pretty rough on this character. Maybe I'll give him a slightly more heroic posturing or a better treatment. It's the least I can do. Also, Melazarr of Caroline, her name pops up in all the books. She is typically known as the Merton, which is yet another extraplanar entity, where she is the deliverer of the universe's mail. She delivers messages from the universe to the Kadarg main, and it's not a letter or a piece of paper she can just hand to him. Usually it's encoded in her body, and the usual way you get these messages out of her is to either have sex with her or to kill her. Kind of not very pleasant choices. Well, one of them could be, I suppose, but the other one certainly isn't. And yes, Melazarr of Caroline dies a lot, not very pleasant fashions. So, and here she is again, the Merton, carrying the universe's mail, and we'll see what happens to her. I'm working on the second turn of the Shadow Tech Goddess, which is Melazarr, which is her book. Anywho, let's dig in, shall we? Chapter 4, Ottoman John and Melazarr of Caroline. Atha led them down the corridor, passing several darkened nodes. So that was a good warm-up. We all feel good about that, right? Now we're playing for higher stakes. And so, where next? Stenstrom asked. Vane, Atha replied. Vane? In Zaffin space? That's right. The League tends to consider its old enemies, the Zaffins, to be rootless lunatics. Whether that's a fair assessment or not is up for debate. But there's no question, if there's a crazy part of Zaffin space, Vane is right in the center of it. A node lit up in somber grayish light. Atha stopped. A dark cityscape appeared in the node under a colorful, nebula-fueled sky like a great, never-drying watercolor. Vane, founded by the House of Conwell several thousand years ago after they fled the League. What else do you know about the city? Kat's knowledge of Zaffin space, other than Shade Church, was virtually nil. She shook her head. Stenstrom spoke. I used to hear about Vane. It's the chief city on the Zaffin world of Wonderland. Vane is a safe haven for every quack, Kabbalist, questionable sage, and austere science imaginable. So I heard in my brief days as captain of the Seeker. For the most part, that's right, Atha said. I've also heard it's not a safe place for proper people. Well, Stenstrom was concerned. What is our objective in Vane? Training. Kat's knowledge of Shadow Tech is infantile at best. I think you'd agree. Kat was stung. I've been practicing. I can form my claws and my tail at a moment's notice. And G's arranged for me to take lessons next month from Countess Sigillus of Blanchford to further my use of it. I know, Atha said, nodding. But I'm willing to bet the place you two are soon to be headed won't be pleasant. You'll need your Shadow Tech fully powered to get through. Your Shadow Tech, now changed to silver, can turn the balance. And we don't have time for you to take lessons from Sigillus of Blanchford. You need that knowledge now. You know, Sigillus of Blanchford killed nearly 100,000 Kestrel warriors in the Temple of the Exploding Head, all by herself, and she used silver tech to do it. That is power we need. The problem with Shadow Tech is that it defies the gods. I can give you knowledge of language, of history, of all sorts of pursuits, but not of Shadow Tech. That knowledge can only come from you, from learning and hard-won experience. In Vane, though, through the power of man, not the gods, we might be able to give you this knowledge all at once. It could be possible, and it's worth seeking out. How? Stenstrom asked. Vane is known as an information center of sorts, where thoughts, talents, and skills are bought and sold every day. Hear me out. Imagine you are a woodcutter by trade. You've been cutting wood for years. You know all the ins and outs and are authority of your trade. You have a lifetime of experience. And then you wander into the wrong bar, talk to the wrong sorts, and some fool in Vane up and steals your knowledge and experience right out of your head. And furthermore, has the raw, unmitigated nuts to wrench you your own skills back for a premium price. That's what happens in Vane. Every day, people lose their heads to the trades, the MVs or mine vendors of Vane. It's been going on for so long that people don't seem to think it's a big deal or an odd occurrence. In fact, the people of Vane aid and abet this culture, buying and selling their skills regularly. Few, if any, have actually earned the knowledge in their heads through experience and hard work. They rented it, upgraded it, and sold it back. They also prey on the unwary, selling their minds to the highest bidder, vuggers they're called. And so, our objective. Years ago, when the Black Hats grew in influence and spread unchecked through Zaffin space, a Black Hat hammer named Paige Dulong of Moan went to Vane and tried to establish a temple there. Usually, Black Hats have their own way wherever they choose to go. But Vane got the better of Paige Dulong. She got vugged and lost her head to the trades, a sect of NVs known as the Russ, or the Yellows as they're also called. Though Paige Dulong is long since dead, her knowledge lives on in the Russ's database. I believe they've tried to sell it in the past to prospective clients, but it didn't work. You have to have the genetic ability to use shadow tech after all. Simply getting the knowledge of how to wield it won't do. Our goal is to get at that knowledge and put it in Kat's head. She is a shadow tech female. I think that might give her the ability to use shadow tech much better. Kat reacted. I want nothing to do with Black Hats. You need that knowledge. I don't want it. Then do what the Vaners do. Rent it for a while. Use it against Belazarr, and then, once the rental period is done, it'll drop out of your head like it was never there. Then you can go see Countess Sigillus and begin your advanced training. Sound good? Kat was conflicted and a bit panicked. She turned to Stenstrom. What should I do, G? I despise the Black Hats. I don't want that filth in my head. Stenstrom understood. Of all things, Kat hated the Black Hats most of all. If you don't want it, then we'll get by without it. The light from Aetha's visor intensified. Have you two not been listening? We're not going to be facing Aram and Alesta in a restaurant again. You're going to be facing Belazarr and her kingdom of horrors. I repeat, you need those skills. Kat flashed her silver tech claws and showed them to Aetha. And I repeat, I don't want it. Aetha sighed. Look, I could just dump you two out there in Vane right now and settle this argument, but you both would probably end up getting vugged and wandering the streets mindless. She pointed at Stenstrom. Work this out with her, okay? Stenstrom pulled Kat aside. She gritted her teeth and rubbed her forehead. I don't like the idea of having Black Hat thoughts in my head, G. I don't want to be a Black Hat. Knowledge of manipulating shadow tech and silver tech doesn't make you a Black Hat. Sigillus of Blanchford isn't a Black Hat anymore, and Lady Poe of Blanchford, the sister of my mentor, Captain Davidge, is a shadow tech female, and she never was a Black Hat. The Black Hats believe these substances belong to them. It does not. It belongs to you, and what you do with it is of your making. I think Aetha has a point. Mastering its use will further liberate you from the Black Hat's legacy. Kat was rank as she grappled with the thought of taking a Black Hat's knowledge into her head. She pulled at her blonde hair and bit her lip. I hate the Black Hats. I know. You won't throw me out or anything, will you, G? Of course not. Why would you ask me that? Kat relented. All right. We can do this for temporary, but then I want it gone, and I want to have my lessons with Countess Sigillus as you promised. Agreed. You're very brave, Kat. He knelt down and kissed her on the forehead. Atha raised her arms, ecstatic. Well done. You won't be sorry. Now, I'm sending you to Vane, near the Street of Knowledge, the bleeding heart of Vane's mine trade. Remember, we're looking for a sect of MVs known as the Russ. They're also known as the Yellows for the yellow robes they wear. We want to buy the knowledge of Page Dulong of Moan from them. How am I paying for this knowledge, he asked. They'll take anything in Vane. Your Belmont sesterces will do fine. Remember, get the data and I'll bring you back. Do not tarry with the locals. You do not want to get vugged. Oh, if you see a guy named Ottoman John and a lady named Melazarr, you should be able to trust them. They might be able to help you out, but nobody else. Got me? All right. Ottoman John and Melazarr. We'll remember, Kat said. Light from the node grew brighter. Ready? Atha said. Stenstrom and Kat clasped hands. Suddenly, both Kat and Stenstrom were standing in a murky, dirty alley. Kat's jumpsuit was gone again. This time she was dressed in a dark, rather artless dress that seemed to put off an air of dreariness. A dark hat sat on her head. Stenstrom was still in his HRN, but his Vith triangle hat was missing. His ints were tucked in their sash, and his kit was safely stashed in the interior of his coat. Kat was having trouble adjusting her hat. Gee, can you give me a help with this, please? He helped her adjust her hat, situating it to properly cover her shadow mark. Her blonde hair was a shocking blast of color against her dark wardrobe. I think I like the Calver clothes better, she said. They heard the sounds of people passing nearby and went in that direction, coming upon a broad street busy with storefronts and crowds of traffic. Here was the Street of Knowledge, long and wide, a ribbon of dark stones in a gray cityscape. From what they could see, the city of Vane was a hilly sort, built in the center of a bumpy, rounded mountain range, complete with bluffs, low valleys, and abrupt shelves of higher ground littered with buildings at various elevations, dappled with cold lights and cross-cut with a zigzag of streets. The Street of Knowledge itself was fairly flat, rising at a slow, steady rate to the north. There was a persistent fall of ash or soot in the air, coupled with the assertive smell of sulfur. They soon saw the cause of the soot, a cone-shaped volcano in the distance, smoking in a steady, ominous fashion. Soot was everywhere, like a black, unmelting snowfall galloping across the cobbles like herds of legless animals, gathering in the gutters. All the buildings were covered, giving them a lifeless gray color despite whatever color they might have actually been originally. The locals rolling about the street all wore relentlessly drab clothing. It was like a festival of cinders, all competing to see which could be the grayest. Despite her hat, Kat already had soot in her hair and on her dress. Stenstrom brushed it out of his face. While the city and the people were drab, the sky above was a wonderland of color. Vibrant streaks of red, yellow, blue, and green painted a great abstract picture superimposed behind a fast-moving layer of black negative image clouds from the volcano. What's going on with the sky? Kat asked, holding onto her hat. I think that's the Great Zaffin Nebula. It takes up a healthy portion of Zaffin space. This planet must be really close for it to be seen so plainly in broad daylight. They spilled out onto the street, joining the somber crowds. Where are we going, G? I suppose we're looking for this Russ sect, the Yellows, as Atha called them. She deposited us here. They can't be far. I don't see any yellow around here, or any other colors for that matter. Let's just keep moving. Something will present itself shortly. They continued up the street for several blocks, Kat continuously brushing the accumulating soot out of her hair. At a busy intersection, a storefront window caught Stenstrom's attention. Kat, look! What? Across the street, competing for space with the other adjacent shops, was a modest gray storefront, framed by a hopeful, cave-like door. Concise writing in several languages and alphabets efficiently covered the windows. Mixed in, written in League Common, was Ottoman John, Esquire, and Associate. Stenstrom read the name off to her. Is that the guy Atha was talking about? Kat asked. Let's find out. They went across the street, brushed the soot from their clothes, and entered, ringing a cheery little bell as they did so. Inside was a tiny office, drab, with mostly unadorned walls, 2 desks, a small sitting table, and a back office area. A long, thin board hung on the near wall, composed of several rows of red lights. The lights lit up with great speed, forming gibberish words scrolling from left to right. A frayed, twisted cable hung down from the board, the ends naked metal, attached to nothing. The board should be non-functional, yet it scrolled with letters and odd symbols at a constant, dizzying pace. Stenstrom looked at the screen, seeing the words change from gibberish to a cryptic message. Gate Archemain. Claim the Merton. A fawn-haired woman wearing a tan cap equipped with a set of complicated goggles nested into the fabric sat at one of the desks, manipulating a hollow terminal. A clay flower pot, hosting an odd alien flower bursting with tropical color, was a welcome bit of cheer in the room. She saw them and offered a big 2 smile. Vege, she said, speaking in some odd language. Stenstrom approached her desk. Your pardon, we were told to see Sir Ottoman John, Esquire, upon our arrival. Is he here? Can you understand me? The woman, hearing Stenstrom speak, switched to perfect League Common. Leaguers, she said. We don't see too many Leaguers here in Crappy Vane. Where you guys from? Cana, Tyrol region. What was that language you were speaking just now? Kat asked. Virtus, the Conwell's old language. This is a place founded by the Conwell, so it's the usual tongue. Used to be, if you didn't know Virtus, you couldn't get into the trades. The Hotter Robes, the Albert Co., the Russ, and the Night Robes wouldn't have you. I'm curious. The League's a long way off. Who sent you to us? A friend. Gotcha. I'm Melazarr. I come from Caroline. I miss it a lot sometimes. My little flowers here's from home. She looked at Stenstrom and squinted, studying his face. Have we ever met before, sir? You look sort of familiar to me. He saw the board flash. Merton is yours. Claim her. Though this Melazarr woman was a total stranger, her appearance and her name were familiar to him as well, at a primal, unspoken level. He was used to this by now, these odd, extraplanar doings. This Melazarr of Caroline was an extraplanar entity, just like he was. She had to be. He knew other versions of him had seen this woman before, had known her, possibly betted her. Bits of information filtered into his thoughts. Tall. She is a giant. Melazarr of Caroline is a giant. And the word flashed across the board, struck a chord with him. Merton. No, madam, we haven't. He held out his hand to shake. Melazarr straightened her clothing and stood. As he expected, she was incredibly tall. Nearly as tall as Stenstrom at 6'7". Guess you got one of those faces that just looks familiar, she said, shaking his hand. Ooh, strong grip. I like that. In case you were wondering why I'm so tall, Carolines are tall. It's some sort of flaw in our genes or something like that. I don't know. I am Stenstrom, Lord of Belmont, South Tyrol. Here with me is Kat, my countess. Melazarr acknowledged Kat with a nod. Hi! Whoa, is that shadow mark real? Yep, Kat said. Never met a Countess Black Hat before. I'm not a black hat. Okay, fine with me. The board on the wall scrolled and bleeped constantly, moving and changing. What's with the sign? Kat asked. Oh, that, I don't know. Melazarr grabbed the frayed end of the board's cable and shook it. This place used to be a sandwich shop. I think the sign displayed the specials of the day, people's orders, that sort of thing. I don't know, it's got a mind of its own, I guess. It just flashes a whole lot of nonsense. Whatever, it's just something to break up the monotony. Stenstrom glanced at the board. It wasn't flashing nonsense at the moment. Sill of the Russ has data. Sill of the Russ. Neither Kat nor Melazarr seemed to be seeing the message, only him. More extraplanar activity, it must be. Anyway, glad to know you. You two are pretty far from home. My boss, Ottoman John, is a Leaguer too. Also from Cana, I think. Leaguers are always welcome here. What can we do for you? We really don't know, Kat said, jumping in. What services do you offer? Oh, we're a one-stop shop here in the Saarlands, the outlying blocks of the Street of Knowledge. We make it our business to assist udders and stinkos. Udders and stinkos? Stenstrom asked. Tourists. Newbies to Vane, that's what we call them. Stinkos are poor souls what had their head totally emptied. Really sucks. The most important piece of knowledge you can have is that the street of knowledge heading up the street towards Pentagol is the happy hunting grounds of Vane. Everybody out there is a potential winner or a potential victim. You gotta know, it's open season. Buying and selling memories, thoughts, and skills is a rough business. Lots of trades up the street. The MVers, the vuggers, and whatnot can be proper dishonest folk. If you're not careful, they'll steal your slate right out of your head before you can say lickety-split. We're advocates for the little guy, for the tourists, and the uninitiated. We can validate any data you buy, lots of sham squash and crap slate floating around out there. We can radar up any lost memories, and best of all, we can also make a complete slate of what's in your head as it currently exists. Should you manage to lose something out there, if you get your slate charmed out of your head, we can upload it right back in. If you can walk away from the street of knowledge with everything you came in with, then you're a winner. We offer all sorts of packages to help protect you during your visit. For the uninitiated, which you guys clearly are, I recommend our premium package. You get a complete imaging of your heads, which we'll back up in our archives. We radar up you to the max. We shoot you some swipe scanners to help validate any data you buy, and we load in some floaters in case you get vugged down to Stinko in a Verdi Hovey Park. Pardon? Stenstrom asked. Stinko. It means you've had your head emptied. If you're a Stinko and all you can do is breathe and stand up, then you've been Verdi Hovey'd. The trades don't like to have to pick Stinkos up off the ground. A floater is a little instruction that will help guide you even if you're slated out. The floater will remain. Stenstrom and Kat discussed it amongst themselves. Well, I didn't quite fully understand everything you just said, but we were told we can trust you and you seem like a goodly lady, so we'll take your premium package for 2, please, Stenstrom said. Melazarr clapped her hands together. Great! Come on back and let's get started. The door to the office opened. A thin man in a black suit wearing a Vane top hat came in, dusting himself off as he entered, revealing a sandy crop of short hair. He carried a bag of fragrant, savory lunch fare. Hey, Johnny, we've got some customers, Melazarr said to him. He set the bag down and greeted them. Ah, Leaguers, your coat, sir, is a dead giveaway. I'm a great fan of the brief but interesting exploits of the Hoban Royal Navy. I haven't seen one of their coats in a long time. Are you Ottoman John, Esquire? Stenstrom asked. I am. Sorry I was absent. I was out getting our lunch. I'm sure Melazarr here has served you well in my absence. She has. Melazarr led them to the sitting table, offering them seats. As they situated themselves, Ottoman John fetched a fruity purple candle from a cupboard and shoved the blood into a metal base. Lights came on. Displays printed out data. He input adjustments and then set the candle on the tabletop. So what is going to happen here? Stenstrom asked. We're feeling a bit nervous. Understandable. We're going to make a complete image of your heads, and we're going to upload a floater to assist you in case you get Verdi Hovey'd. We're going to use smoke to make the image. Smoke is the fastest method of doing it. It's also the most complete. What's smoke? Kat asked. Ottoman John showed them the candle. This. We light the candle and we get smoke. Smoke is nanotech. You breathe it in, gets in your lungs, and it quickly saturates your brain. Stenstrom and Kat looked at each other. I'm not certain we're comfortable, he said. I get that. We can get the image via Serral, or we can dot it, but those are much slower and not as reliable. Listen, if we had wanted, we could have Verdi Hovey'd you two into Stinkos 1,000 times by now. It's not who we are. That's not what we're about. We're on your side. But you're the clients. Just tell us how you want to proceed. It's okay, G. Aetha said we can trust them, Kat said, getting comfortable in her seat. Stenstrom thought about it. All right, do what you need to do. That's what I want to hear, Melazarr said, striking a match with her teeth. She lit the candle wick, and a bluish, undulating fire blossomed. The candle quickly made a thick, sweet-smelling smoke that filled the air like temple incense. Melazarr returned to her desk and began working her hollow terminal. Ottoman John watched with casual interest. Just relax and allow Melazarr to perform her work. One thing you need to know about Vane, things are never what they seem at face value. Stenstrom coughed. And you're certain this, smoke is safe? Perfectly. We image people all the time because people lose their heads all the time. The image we make right now before the trades up the street in Pentagol get at you is like pure gold. The trades hate the images we make because it takes money out of their robes. Instead of having to buy your thoughts back from them for top brass, we just upload it yourself for free. The trades are always trying to put us out of business for good. They've even sent the ECSP after us. The what? The ECSP, the cops. It stands for Engineering Commando Squad Pentagon. The trades go crying to them whenever they want somebody out of business or dead. We're pretty good at shaking them though. If you know all their tricks, keep your head, they really don't know how to deal with you, and we can move our office at a moment's notice. Yep, Melazarr agreed from her desk. Remember that one guy last week, Johnny? We squashed him up 4 times because he kept getting dong-dinged hard. Yeah, the poor bastard. Data poured in. Melazarr processed it. Here it comes. We'll do the lady first. Kat closed her eyes, falling into a trance as Melazarr worked. Ottoman John spoke, his voice soft and hypnotic. So, for your floater, what sort of instructions would you like us to upload? We're here for a specific order of business, Stenstrom said, feeling he could trust them. We seek to purchase information. We call that the slate, Ottoman John said. You've heard us tossing that term around. A slate is information taken from people's heads. What slate are you looking for? Before Stenstrom could answer, Melazarr spoke, punching up data as it formed in front of her. Hey, Johnny, the lady here's slating up like a black hat. She's got all the markers. Ottoman John raised a brow. I see her shadow mark, but I thought it was just paint. Is your countess a black hat? Kat is a shadow tech female, but she's no black hat. He laughed. Oh, you leaguers do the daftest things, don't you? I'd heard it's the fashion now in the league to court black hats. We don't think much of them in vain. Nasty, fire-breathing ladies, most of them, but your Kat seems charming enough. If I were a betting man, which I am, I would bet you're looking for the slate of Paige DeLong of Moan. Am I right? You are. Ottoman John laughed again. Well, that's a nice, hard-cooked piece of slate for certain. The Russ have it in their central database up the hillside in Pentagon, right in the center of the Street of Knowledge. The Russ created quite a stir when they took it from her. Thought they were going to score big brass and ransom and rental payments from the Black Hats for it. But seems the Black Hats don't care much about such things, and the Russ never got their payout. Though Paige DeLong losing her whole slate seems to put the Black Hats off conquering vein for the time being, which I suppose is a good thing. You're going to want to see Syl of the Russ. He's their head guy. He's got access to it. I'll add his name to your floater. Paige DeLong's slate is going to be expensive. You got the brass for it? The what? Money. Paige DeLong's slate is going to be expensive. The Russ will sell you a copy on Cyril disc. Bring it back here and we'll convert it into squash for you. Pardon? Squash, or squashstat as it's known. It's a method of encoding data into a capsule about yay big. He held his thumb and forefinger about an inch apart. To upload the data, all you gotta do is smash the capsule against your forehead and you've got it. Right into your skin and skull, direct into your brain. Very nice and quick method of upload, but it tends not to be permanent. That sounds fine, Stenstrom said, feeling suddenly tired and dizzy. He struggled to maintain consciousness. The red scrolling letters on the board mesmerized him as they passed. Demon awaits. He stared at the board.
Going to die.
Next thing he knew, Melazarr was leaning over him, cap and goggles, all smiles. Did you dream? She asked. Stenstrom looked around. The candle was burned down to a nub. Ottoman John and Melazar's lunches were eaten, the bag flattened and thrown into the trash. The board was back to random, nonsensical letters and symbols moving by. I don't recall dreaming, he said. Yeah, some people do, some don't. We're all done, she said happily. We have both your images slated up and safe in our archives. Kat stirred. He took her hand and rubbed it. Melazarr placed 2 small bags on the table. Here you go. And each of these bags are 20 squash capsules. The white ones are for you, sir. The green ones are for the Countess. We figure you two are going to get vugged a lot, Ottoman John said. You might even get verti-huvied. If you're out there and you lose something, if you find you're forgetting something that you ought to know, just take a capsule and squash it right back into your head. That'll piss the trades off right proper. This is the good stuff, Melazarr said. Got right shiny nano in it. Squash this up and it's permanent. Since it's an image of your own head, you won't have to worry about it dropping out after a few hours. Don't let the trades catch you with it. They'll drag you off to the ECSP. Stenstrom took the bags. Much obliged. How much do we owe you? I have Belmont sesterces to pay with. 7 sesterces will be fine. Stenstrom produced his money bag and paid. Remember, Ottoman John said, taking the money, you guys are going up the hill to get at Page Dulong's slate. You're going to be in it with the trades deep, and you can get vugged in a fast, bloody moment. Watch smoke, because it's probably not smoke, it's smoke. Watch chairs, too. Don't sit in strange chairs. Don't look into blinking lights. Don't eat anything given to you on the streets, and don't let anybody touch you or dong-ding you either. Watch out for the bloody snakeheads. Yeah, the snakeheads suck, Melazarr agreed. So, what you're saying is, don't breathe, don't sit, don't eat, don't shake hands with strangers, and watch out for snakes, Kat said. Essentially, yes. Are there any defenses you can sell us for protection from all this? Stenstrom asked. Well, sure. We can sell you masks to filter out smoke and lenses to protect your eyes from serals, but if you two go walking up the street all armored up and you don't have a 4D tattoo floating around your head that says P-Force, you're going to be asking for trouble. They're going to come at you in force, and there's no single defense against everything. Your best bet is to lie low, look like you know what you're doing, and not attract attention. Stenstrom and Ottoman John shook hands. Kat gave him a hug. We'll be careful, and we'll be back soon with our data. Ottoman John handed Kat a coin-sized silver device. Take this. It's a swipe scanner. I've got it junked to look for Page Dulong's slate. When the Russ give you the disc, swipe this across it. If the right data's there, it'll light up green. If it's not, it'll turn red. Remember, trust nobody. When the soot stops falling, you're there in Pentagon with the trades. Be careful. Kat took the disc and dropped it into her bag. Got it. Thanks. Melazarr looked conflicted. Hey, Johnny, these two are real udders, and they've got all sorts of dat the trades won't be able to resist. Maybe we should go with them, keep them from getting into trouble and help out with the Russ. Stenstrom looked at the odd message board, continually flashing messages, but connected to nothing. Thoughts assailed him. Melazarr of Caroline is a Merton, herald of the universe's news. Mertons always die. Melazarr always dies. He didn't want her to die. No, thank you, my lady. Most kind of you, but we're fine. Are you sure? Yes, please. You've done more than enough, and thank you. Melazarr motioned them to stay for a moment. One sec, I'll be right back. She disappeared into the back office, emerging a few minutes later carrying a jar of dark blue capsules. She opened the jar and gave one to both of them. Go ahead. Just smash them against your forehead. It's fun. What are these? Kat asked. Vertus. Squash these up and you'll be speaking perfect Vertus for a couple of hours. That'll throw the wolves off you for a little bit. Good idea, Mel, Ottoman John said. They hesitated a moment, then Stenstrom smashed the capsule against his forehead, feeling it crack open and spill out a cold, runny interior against his skin. Kat did the same. Ottoman John offered Kat a cloth. She accepted and wiped her brow. Should we be feeling anything? Stenstrom asked. Melazarr laughed. Nope, only that you're now speaking awesome, accent-free Vertus. We are? You are. Neat, huh? Stenstrom bowed to Melazarr. Thank you. How long will this last? Several hours. And how much do we owe you? Nothing. It's on us. Ottoman John took Kat's hand and kissed it. All right, then. We'll expect you back shortly to convert your Page Dulong data into squash. Remember what we've told you and use the swipe scanner. Speed well and safe dreams. Placing their sacks of squash into their pockets, they went out into the sooty afternoon, thankful for the acquaintances they had made. And with that, we conclude Part 4, Chapter 4, Ottoman John and Melazarr of Caroline. As I mentioned, Ottoman John has shown up in a lot of these Shadowtech Goddess books in various roles. Usually he's a toady, a bad guy, kind of a beta male sort. Wanted to give him a chance to be more of a solid dude. And so I thought this Vane thing would give him a chance to shine a little bit, where he and Melazarr are good guys. they're on the side of the little guy in vain, against these horrible mine trades, the vuggers, the robes up the street, doing what they can to help out. And I thought that shone through pretty well in this chapter. Next chapter, they arrive in Pentagul. This is going to be one of the strangest chapters I've ever written, and it's also one of the most fun, and I'm glad I was able to find it and be able to use it here. Quick note, I mentioned the ECSP, the cops. They are a direct tribute, if you haven't already guessed, to the G-Force from Battle of the Planets, a cartoon I just loved as a kid. I would run home to watch the G-Force. I loved their costumes. I loved the Phoenix. I loved their cerebronic imprints. I even loved Zoltar, the bad guy. Always loved them. And so I wanted to do a direct tribute to them. So instead of the G-Force, it's the P-Force. The G-Force's full Japanese name is Science Ninja Team Gatchaman. I never knew that. Once I dug into anime later on in manga, that's when I found that out. Science Ninja Team Gatchaman. So the ECSP, the P-Force, is Engineering Commando Squad Pentagul, and they tend to serve the bad guys in this, the vuggers, the trades. They're not on your side. They're on the sides of the people out to steal your head. That's just the culture of this particular town. And we will get to all this insanity next week as we move on to part 4, chapter 5, The Street of Knowledge. And I can't wait. It's going to be a ride. Anywho, this is Ren Presents. I'm your host, Ren. Peace out.